Hello and welcome to A Book in 5 Minutes. I'm Lindsay Milner. This week the book is called Dopamine Nation by Dr Anna Lembke. Why our addiction to pleasure is causing us pain. So she points out that a lot of us are using dopamine, high dopamine activities or substances, and we're using them to try and escape our thoughts. The downside to this is that when we stop the dopamine activities, those thoughts and emotions and sensations all come crashing down on us. So you might wonder, well, why do we want to give it up then? But what she points out is that actually when we're addicted to dopamine, when we're addicted to either a substance or an activity or behaviour that causes those constant dopamine hits, we do eventually get to a point where the fun of it, the high that we're seeking, we no longer get that. And we start to need more and more and more of the dopamine in order to just feel normal. And if we stop, we feel anxious and irritable, and we're perhaps not sleeping well, and we start to sort of withdraw even more from the world. She uses a number of case studies and stories, so it is quite an interesting read. One note of caution, there is a story in there of a guy who has a sex addiction, so if you don't want to be faced with reading about that, then maybe this isn't the book for you. However, there's so much in there, so much more than that. It's not just about that. The addictions that she talks about, it can be the sex addiction, it could be drugs, alcohol, food, shopping, gambling, even what seem like fairly innocuous things like spending too much time on our phone, social media, or video games, games on our phone. I mean, most of us are attached at the hip to our phones these days, aren't we? So it's a useful read in terms of why. She talks about the pleasure pain equilibrium, that mostly we're at an equilibrium, and then sometimes we have pleasure and sometimes we have pain. But if we keep going after the dopamine highs, we need more and more and more to get that dopamine high. And as I say, if you don't, you then just feel irritable and anxious, which is where this is pain coming in and go, no, too much. We need to get back to an equilibrium. So we end up in pain over, emotional pain, probably over our addiction. I've oversimplified that massively. She goes into lots of detail about the neuroscience that sort of backs up what she's saying. And it kind of makes logical sense to me. I can see where she's coming from with that. So what she says we need to do, essentially cold turkey. She doesn't call it that, she calls it dopamine fasting. So it's cut yourself off from the source of your dopamine hits. And taking a break, she suggests at least a month. A month is the minimum amount of time to enable your sort of neurological equilibrium to reset from the too many dopamine hits. She includes some strategies for how to achieve this. Things like cutting off the supply of your drug of choice, which she calls self-binding, but also enlisting other people to help you and support. And she also talks about radical honesty being an essential part of this. And again, if we look at things like the Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program, they include these elements. So if you slip up, you own up to it. You don't try to hide from the fact that you made a mistake. Be honest with yourself. But with the accountability, she says we the other key is compassion. We need to show ourselves compassion and show compassion to others. So I thought there were quite a lot of similarities between what she is saying and what Mate said in The Myth of Normal. So should you read this book? Well, yeah. I mean, if you are addicted to anything, and there's a suggestion, I think in Mate's book actually, that we're all addicted to an extent to some kind of behaviours or substances. Yeah, read it. There are some useful strategies in here. It's a shorter read than Mate's book. As I say, there is a sort of description of somebody's sex addiction. So if you don't want to deal with that, that is a little bit strange, I will say, then maybe go for The Myth of Normal instead. But as I say, this is a shorter read. It's an entertaining read. It makes a lot of logical sense, and also has some useful strategies for how to deal with it. That is Dopamine Nation, Why Our Addiction to Pleasure is Causing Us Pain by Dr Anna Lembke. Let me know what you think if you've read this. Drop a comment. Don't forget to like this video, and if you want more content like this, then please do subscribe to the channel. I will see you next time. Bye.